All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on a piece of American history that's, well, it's pretty wild. It's a story built on secrets, on sacrifice, and this incredible drive for a new life. We're talking about the hidden history of the Paper Sons.
So, I want you to picture this. It's 1916, Angel Island, right there in the San Francisco Bay. Now, for thousands of Chinese immigrants, this place wasn't exactly a welcome mat. No, it was more like the first big test in a life that was about to be filled with uncertainty and, frankly, a ton of scrutiny.
And arriving right here on this island is a 14-year-old kid. His name is Louie Share Kim. Think about that for a second. He's traveled alone for almost a month, all the way across the Pacific. He doesn't speak English, has zero job skills, but he's carrying the entire weight of his family's hopes and dreams on his shoulders. I mean, the pressure is just immense.
Now, if you were to look at his passport photo, you'd see this kid all dressed up in a very American-looking suit and tie. It's an image his father very carefully put together, but his real identity? Oh, it was way more complicated. See, in a way, Louie Share Kim had two fathers, and that's the real puzzle we're trying to solve here.
And here's the answer to that puzzle. Louie was what they called a paper son. So what is that? Well, it was a whole system, really, born completely out of desperation. People would literally buy the identity of someone who was legally allowed to get into the U.S. They'd create this whole fake family relationship that, you guessed it, existed only on paper.
Okay, but that begs a huge question, right? Why would anyone need to do something so risky? Well, to really get why the whole Paper Son system even existed, you have to look at the massive roadblocks that America itself was putting up. It really all comes down to two major events that kind of set the stage for everything. First, back in 1882, you have the Chinese Exclusion Act. This law basically slammed the door shut, making it illegal for Chinese laborers to bring their families over. Then, fast forward to 1906, a massive earthquake and fire ripped through San Francisco. And that fire had this wild, unexpected side effect. It burned up almost all the city's birth records.
So, you see how these two things created a kind of perfect storm? The Chinese Exclusion Act, that was the problem. But there was a tiny, crucial loophole. See, U.S. citizens could still bring their families over from China. And the earthquake, well, that created the opportunity. With all the birth records gone, who was going to prove that a man wasn't born in America? All of a sudden, thousands of people could claim they were citizens, which meant they could create these immigration slots for sons they never actually had.
Okay, so the opportunity was there, the loophole existed, but how did someone, in a small village in China, actually use this to get to America? Let's break down how this incredibly risky underground system actually worked. It was pretty much a 4-step process, and every step had to be perfect. First, a citizen creates an immigration slot just by reporting a fake birth. Then that slot gets sold to a family back in China. The child from that family, the new paper son, then gets a coaching book that they have to memorize. Filled with every tiny detail about their new fake life. And all of this was to prepare for a brutal interrogation once they got to Angel Island. And let me tell you, this wasn't cheap. This desperate shot at a new life came with a staggering price tag. Buying one of these paper son identities could cost thousands of dollars, which was an absolute fortune back then. We're talking families pooling every last penny, borrowing from every relative they had, and going into debt for years, literally betting the farm on one kid's chance to make it in America. And the pressure on these kids, it was just immense. Those coaching books weren't just a few facts. They were insanely detailed. Every relative's name, the exact layout of their fake house, even how many steps it was to the village well. The paper son had to have it all memorized, cold. Because one slip-up, just one wrong answer, and the whole story would fall apart. And that meant getting sent right back home. So, getting through that interrogation was one huge hurdle. But actually living the lie, that was something else entirely. This wasn't just some business deal. It was a journey that came with a really, really heavy human cost. And this is really the heart of the whole experience. The hope, the dream, was for a better life, for opportunity. But the reality was living every single day in the shadow of fear. Fear of being discovered, fear of being deported, and just the crushing weight of carrying a secret that you could never, ever tell anyone. And make no mistake, the consequences were devastatingly real. Remember Louie Share Kim? Well, he had a twin paper brother who came over with him. But when the officials at Angel Island put them side by side, it was obvious they weren't twins. The height difference was just too much. So the twin was deported, sent back to China. He died just 2 years later. A failed interrogation wasn't just a disappointment, it could literally be a death sentence. So for decades, this whole chapter of history just stayed hidden. It was buried in family secrets. So how in the world did these stories that were silenced by so much fear and trauma, finally start to come out?
Well, this is Sam Louie. He's the son of that 14-year-old boy we started with, Louie Share Kim. And growing up, Sam never heard a word about how his parents came to America. Not one. And that kind of silence was really common for that generation. The whole experience was just so painful, it was easier to just try and forget. It wasn't until after his mother passed away that Sam started to piece the real story together.
So as Sam was digging through the National Archives, he found something that just blew him away. The number 42. What's that? It's the number of single-spaced typed pages in the interrogation transcript for just his mother and her siblings. 42 pages, just page after page of questions designed to trip them up, to catch them in a lie. It's this incredible, tangible piece of what his family went through. And here's the thing. This wasn't just the Louie family story, not by a long shot. Some historians estimate that up to 80%, 80 of Chinese Americans from that time have a paper son somewhere in their family tree. This was a massive, shared secret that shaped an entire community for generations. And in what has to be one of the most powerful full-circle moments you can imagine, Sam Louie now volunteers at the Angel Island Immigration Station, the exact same place where his father's terrifying journey in America began. He actually portrays his father, telling his story, to make sure that this hidden history is finally brought into the light. And that really leaves us with one last thought. Sam Louie found 42 pages that completely unlocked his family's past. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other stories like this are out there? What stories of survival and sacrifice are waiting in our own family histories, maybe hidden away in an archive somewhere, or just silenced by the passing of time?